Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and we are right in the middle of Set Lusting Bruce 10th anniversary. And so I have my new friend joining me, Reeya.
Hmm?
So welcome to the podcast, Reeya.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you start out? Tell us a little about yourself.
Let's see. I am a musician. I was a New Yorker for many years. I now live in New Jersey, which, as a New Yorker, there was a part of me that was like, oh no, I'm moving to New Jersey. But then I was like, but that's where Bruce is. So
There we
how can I,
go.
how can I be that mad? And yeah, so I'm a musician. I'm actually about to release my second album. It's coming out in 2 days. I'm very much in album promo mode. I'm very glad to step out of it for a while and just be a fan for a while.
Good.
And yeah, that's about it. I've
Okay,
been a Bruce fan pretty much forever. I don't even remember when it started, but yeah, I love talking. I've seen him live a bunch of times. I
great.
have his book. I went to his book signing.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right, we're going to get all into that. And I do want to hear a little bit about your music, but I always like to start at the beginning. Where did you grow up and what kind of music was your family listening to?
So I grew up in mostly in San Francisco. I was born in Washington, D.C., lived there till I was 6, moved to Chicago, lived there till I was 9. Then we moved to San Francisco, and I was there for the rest of my childhood. Growing up, a lot of the Beatles. My mom was a big Beatles fan. That's probably my origin story as a musician, was just listening to all of the Beatles records. She had them all on LP, on vinyl. My dad was more of a folky, so a lot of Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul and Mary, Paul Simon, Simon and Garfunkel, that kind of thing. Obviously, there's a big through line from Bob Dylan to Bruce that we could talk about.
Sure.
Neither of them were Bruce Springsteen fans. My dad has become a Bruce Springsteen fan later in life as well, basically through me
Okay.
pushing him in that direction. So yeah, but it was a very like classic rock kind of foundational music education
Hmm.
at home. And that's the environment I was in. I'm the child of immigrants. My parents are from India. They came here in 1978. So my mom has had some vocal training in the Indian classical tradition. My dad studied violin, like traditional Western canon violin.
Yeah.
So they both had musical backgrounds as well. But for my mom, it was the Beatles above all, and for my dad, it was anything that he could strum a guitar along to. So
Did you get some Indian music as a kid?
I did. In as much as we listen to it at home sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's a different scale, different modality. It's a whole different system. I have music. I took piano lessons as a kid, and I play the bass now, and so I have a pretty strong foundation in music theory, and it's a whole different animal.
Mm.
Indian classical music. It's interesting,
Yeah.
but it's like a whole different way of thinking about how to structure music. It's beautiful, but it's also you have to study it almost, or for
Yeah.
me, to
Yeah.
really understand it.
Why did you guys move?
That was my dad's job. He just
Okay.
he just kept getting better jobs, and then finally we ended up
Okay.
in San Francisco, and he was like, "This is a cool place. Let's stay here." And
Very nice.
I was at that point, I was like, "I don't want to move anymore." Okay.
The reason I asked, my dad was in the army,
Oh, that makes
and
sense.
so
Yeah,
I moved around a lot. So I
yeah.
didn't know if there was any connection with that or not.
My dad just wanted better jobs and kept applying for better
Yeah,
jobs, and then finally found one in a place where he wanted to stay put. So
that's very nice.
yeah.
Did you always know you wanted to make music?
Yes, I did. I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to do it like professionally or for a living. And I would say right now, I would love to say that I make a living making music, but I'm not quite there yet. I have to have a day job still, but that's the dream, obviously, is someday to be able to do that. But I always wanted to play music. I always wanted to play rock music. Let me put it that way. I was put in piano lessons when I was 6 years old. And I'm not mad about that because music theory obviously has come in handy in my adulthood as a musician, but I didn't want to play the piano. I always wanted to play the bass guitar. My mom's favorite Beatle was Paul's the bass guitar. I was like, I want to play play bass like Paul. And she was like, no, you got to learn how to play piano. And it was this constant source of tension in the house where I was like, but you, Paul, I don't understand. And she's, girls don't play the bass. And I was like, what? So yeah, that was growing up. That was the situation at home. And then I went to college. I studied film in college, and then I don't actually do anything with that film degree. I work as an accountant of all things, not really
Hmm.
what I thought I'd be doing. And about 10 years ago or so, I was in a job that kind of sucked and I burned out a little bit. And I was like, I need to make some change somewhere because this isn't fun for me. I need to
Mm,
be like corporate America working in Manhattan sort of thing. I was like, I've always wanted to play the bass. I've never done anything about it. And I went to a music store with a friend of mine and I bought the cheapest bass they had for sale and a little teeny tiny practice amp. And I was like,
mm-hmm.
I am going to learn how to play the bass. And I started looking up bass tabs and I was like, okay, this is interesting. I know how to play notes on a keyboard, but four strings on a fretboard is a whole different thing. And
Mm,
then I learned enough to know that I wasn't going to get any better unless I started playing with other people, like in a band. That's the easiest way to learn how to play an instrument like the bass or a guitar, anything like that, any rock music. You got to play with people.
yeah.
Just met people to play with and jammed out and did a bunch of the bar band sort of circuit and how to play all sorts of covers. I know how to play a lot of Bruce songs. I know how to play a lot of Stone songs, Beatles songs. I know actually did I've been in two cover bands where we played Born in the USA back to front and one where we
Mm,
did Born to Run back to front. So I
yeah.
know how to play those two, maybe his two most famous albums. I know how to play both of those all the way through back to front.
So I had a couple of years ago, Holly West
Hmm.
joined me. She was the lead vocalist and bassist in the Dead Groove band, and then also the bass player for Zepparella,
Oh,
which is the all-female Led Zeppelin cover band,
yeah.
has
Yeah.
joined me. What about the bass spoke to you? Is it just because of Paul, or
It's interesting you ask that because in retrospect, I think it might have been about that. Just full disclosure, my mom passed away when I was 12. She had cancer. And so
okay?
sometimes in retrospect, I look back on that and I wonder if there is a part of me she was sick for most of my childhood. So there might have been, I don't know. Honestly, though, I can say that my origin story with the bass was listening to Paperback Writer.
Okay.
I'm 6 or 7 years old listening to it. It has a when the bass comes in that song, it comes in with this kind of stabbing, thumping part. He played it on his Rickenbacker, and obviously I didn't know what that was when I was 6. I was just like, "What is that sound? That is so cool!
Yeah.
It sounds so cool, and I want to do that." And from there, it went from there. And then to be a bass player, it's interesting because I know a lot of female bass players, even though I think maybe stereotypically a lot of people don't necessarily think of the bass as like a feminine instrument.
Yeah.
There's something cool about being like a woman holding the instrument that's the low end of the band. And then you're the anchor, you and the drummer are the anchor when you're
Yeah.
in a and just being responsible for kind of keep being the glue that holds the rest of the band together.
Mm.
Something very I like the sort of juxtaposition of the like being a woman and being in that role. I don't know.
Mhm.
That might be reading way too much into it, but
No,
yeah.
I think that's interesting. By the
Yeah.
way, I misspoke. It was the drummer in Zapparella was
Oh,
who
okay.
joined me.
Okay.
Though I did have Ian Bodley, who has been a bassist for tons of bands. And I asked him about that. I said, the when you listen to like history of rock and roll in 500 songs, or you read stories, it's often we need a bass player, figure it out. It's
Yeah.
someone, okay, somebody else is playing lead and somebody else is playing rhythm. I want to be in the band, so I guess I'll figure out how to play a bass.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool when that's what you want to play. I think
Yeah.
that's neat.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's how Paul ended up being the bass player in the Beatles too. Is
Yeah,
like Stuart Sutcliffe was supposed to be their bass player, and then he was like, I don't even really want to be a musician, and it was like, okay, now what? And Paul's like, I guess I'll do it, and
yeah,
and then he turns out to be one of the most brilliant bassists in the history of rock
yeah,
music. He's somebody who did not set out to be a bass player; he wanted to be a guitar
yeah,
player. He's also a very good guitar player, obviously, but I just think
yeah,
that's such a cool part of his story. I think that's also what makes the bass parts that he wrote for the Beatles so interesting because he's a bass player who wanted to be a lead guitarist. And so that's why a
yeah,
lot of his bass parts are cool and very melodic and they move around a lot. It's not like a lot of 1 5 1 5 thumping around.
yeah.
There's like a lot of really beautiful melodic bass parts in Beatles songs. So I think that's definitely a part of what makes his bass playing interesting. But yeah, no, you're totally right. There's so many stories of, oh, someone has to do it, so I guess I'll do it,
Yeah.
And yeah,
And this is, I apologize if this is a dumb question. Do you play stand-up bass as well? Is that a totally different than a electric bass?
That's not a dumb question. I don't. I would love to. It is my I understand. I have some friends who do play stand-up bass. It is different in some ways, primarily that there's not a fretboard, so you have to just be a lot more comfortable with where you are on the neck and to make sure that you're playing
Yeah,
everything correctly. It's also it's heavy,
yeah,
which is literally heavy. And then I have a friend who was telling me that like if the strings are so thick and like super super sharp, and he was like until I built up my calluses, he's
yeah.
sometimes I would actually legitimately cut myself during rehearsals and end up bleeding fingers, and I was like,
Yeah.
you're not making it sound like
Yeah,
something I
this
want
does
to
not
try.
sound like I wanted. Yeah. Yeah.
He was like, just fair warning, and I was like, I prefer not to bleed.
So you mentioned earlier, so I'm gonna ask, even though you've already answered this, can you remember when you discovered Bruce and what about him spoke to you? What about his
um
music?
that is a great question. I can tell you when I first became aware of him, and I think I first became aware of him at some point when I was in high school,
Okay.
and this will date me a little bit. I When I was in high school, The Rising was the Bruce Springsteen album that was
Okay.
out. Tells you how old I am, which might make me maybe on the younger spectrum of I'm not sure who all
You
you had.
are on the younger, considering I graduated high school in 1977. So
Okay.
you are a
Okay.
youngster to me.
Yeah,
Yes.
I graduated in 2003. But that was when I first became aware of him, and that's a beautiful album, and that was also very much like in that kind of post 9/11 era, like a lot of that album was big for us, and like U2, All That You Could Leave Behind, that was another
Yeah.
album that came out at that time, and those were like really just when I think about that time period and just like what was going on in the country and also how old I was and what was on the radio, what I was listening to, those two albums I think of as very much like when I think of high school and specifically high school at that time in that kind of post 9/11 sort of everyone was having. So that's when I became aware. I knew who he was, but that's when I became aware of him in a kind of, oh, he's on the radio now, and now I'm listening to him. And then, of course, I just through pop culture, I'd heard Born in the USA, I'd heard Born to Run, I'd heard Thunder Road, just because it's kind of part of the fabric of American music. You
Sure.
listen to a classic rock station, you're going to hear his songs. When I first became a fan, honestly, was many years later. I went to my current partner, Tim, years ago. God, when was this? This was like in 2008 or 2009. He had tickets to see, this is like when we first started dating. He had tickets to see Bruce, this is very early on, and he was going to go down to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and see Bruce with a buddy of his. And then in the 11th hour, his friend couldn't make it. And he was like, I've got an extra ticket. Want to come with me? And it was very impromptu. I was like, yes. And so hopped in the car, drove down to Pennsylvania. We were from New York. And it was like, it was May. It was beautiful outside. Hershey Park is a really beautiful stadium. And we got there and it was just like the weather was perfect. And it was like, again, it was summer. So it stayed light out
Yeah.
for a really long time. And he came out and he did his thing. And that was the first time I've ever experienced a Bruce Springsteen show live. And that was like almost a religious experience. And then it's also just like, the way I describe it is like, there's something about like a night like that. It was like this beautiful like spring summer night and the weather was perfect, and I was there with this guy I was falling in love with, and there's Bruce Springsteen who's doing a show in front of us, and it's how can you not fall in love when you're
Yeah.
listening to Bruce Springsteen on a beautiful night out? That's when I think of that first concert I saw. That's kind of it all is wrapped up in those feelings. So that's when I became like a fan.
Yeah.
And that was also one of those things where as the show was going and he was performing, I was like, I realized that there were so many songs used. I was like, oh, I know this song. I just didn't realize it was a Bruce Springsteen song. Or maybe knew it was a Bruce Springsteen song, but didn't realize it was like a super famous
Yeah.
Springsteen song. There's just so much of him that's in pop culture that you don't even necessarily realize you
Yeah.
picked up along the way. But he'd play something and be like, oh, I know this one too. Oh, it wasn't just, oh yeah, I know Born in the USA and Dancing in the Dark. Whatever. So that was fun too, realizing how much I knew without realizing that I
Yeah.
knew it. That was definitely, I think seeing him live is a huge. I was also like, I remember texting my dad later and being like, I don't know if you've ever, because he had some friends who were into Bruce, and he was like, he's coming to San Francisco. They're asking if I want to see him. And I was like, you've got to go see him live because that
Yeah.
is an experience. And so my dad went and saw him live, and he texted me afterwards. And my dad is Bruce's age, so my dad texted me after the show, and he goes, "That was fucking incredible. Also, that guy has so much energy. I need to go to the gym." Uh, I can't do a 4 hour show like that. I don't have the stamina. I was like, I don't think I do either, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the experience, I feel like seeing Bruce live is a huge part of what makes Bruce fans.
Totally agree. In fact, couple of things. I joke around there's two kinds of people, the people that go to their first Bruce show and go, wow, that was long. And the others that go, oh my gosh, when can I do this again?
Right, that was my
Yeah.
thing. I was like, we got to do this again. Yeah.
So I'll end up cutting this out, but I discovered him with the river, casual fan, born in USA, tunnel of love. And then we got married in 84. We had our first kid in 89. We moved to Dallas in 86 and just life happens. And so the Rising, that Friday night where they did the fundraiser and the
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
band, yep,
yeah,
does
yeah.
City of Ruins. And I went, oh, yeah, Bruce Springsteen. Why haven't I been listening to Bruce Springsteen? And then in 2002, he came to Dallas and I moved heaven and earth. I don't care what's going on. I am seeing Bruce Springsteen. And so we go and we're in nosebleed sections. We've got with a couple of our friends. My wife goes with me. And it was the Rising tour. So he was playing a lot of songs from the Rising. And I really didn't know a lot of songs because it wasn't like a greatest hits song.
Sure.
And so what I tell people is, unlike you, where you recognize the song, I didn't. But to me, it felt like I'd walked into the middle of a movie and I could tell it was a really good movie.
Interesting.
And I
Yeah.
wanted to know the first part of that movie.
That's a really cool way of putting it. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And so then I became obsessed. And then I'm always proud that the next time he came was the Devils and Dust tour.
Uh-huh.
And Reeya, I knew Devils and Dust backwards and forwards. I had done my homework. I was ready. And yeah, and so it truly is. And I know it's a cliche, and people say that like they roll their eyes with us when they go, if you haven't seen them live, you don't get it. Yeah, but there's truth in that statement.
Absolutely true. It is absolutely true.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
100%. Like you
yeah,
just it yeah.
yeah. So I always like to preface this, the amount of times you've seen him live is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are. But are you someone who counts? And if it's, do you know how many?
Yes, I am someone who counts. Let me do some math though, because I was thinking about this earlier when we were emailing and then I forgot to actually write it down. So
That's okay.
I have seen him 7 times
Okay.
live.
Yeah.
7 times, a couple times at the Garden, a couple times at Meadowlands, which of course,
Yeah.
that's like the quintessential. I saw him in Newark once, the Hershey Park, obviously. Yeah, so a lot of mostly and we see him in Albany. I want to say maybe we saw him in Albany too. I'm
Mhm.
not 100% sure about Albany. I might be conflating that with
Okay.
somebody else, but
Yeah.
because Paul McCartney has played Albany too. I've seen Paul McCartney a bunch of times as well.
Okay. Um,
But yeah, a lot of New York and New Jersey shows basically,
yeah.
which is weird. That's if you, I don't know. I don't want to be a New York, New Jersey purist here, but there is something. If you haven't had the chance to see him in New Jersey, like in there's something extra super special about seeing him in New Jersey because it's like it's a whole different level of I wouldn't say that he plays it differently or he does it better in New Jersey necessarily, but it's just the vibe and the air is so different because the audience is so not just that they love him, but they're protective of him.
I totally agree. The first time I saw him was in Dallas, and then saw him a couple other times in Dallas, saw him in Houston, Nashville, Kansas City. And then at the end of that second river tour where he did those 3 nights at MetLife Stadium, right?
Yeah, MetLife. Yeah, I still
Yeah.
think of it as
Yeah,
MetLife.
yeah. And so it was the second night, and my son went with me. We flew in from Dallas,
Wow. Yeah.
and my son still jokes about they have good popcorn there. And we the same thing for you, right? We had tailgate with some friends, met a lot of online friends that I'd known through social media. And so we're sitting at toward the upper deck. It's the open air. It's this is like in September, I guess. Maybe I'll have to look up the date, but the weather was absolutely beautiful. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
just a little kind of mist, but nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the night where the guy asked his fiance, he asked his girlfriend to marry him, and while Bruce was doing Jersey Girl, and so he
Oh,
had him come up
yeah.
on stage, and it's the first time ever because I'm a greedy bastard. I want one more, Bruce, one more.
Yeah.
And it was almost 4 hours.
Yep. Sounds
Uh,
about right.
yeah, the energy. And my
Yeah.
son and I looked at each other. Okay, I know they talk about, and you go, they're such snobs. This feels different.
It
This
does. Yeah.
feels different than Dallas or Oklahoma City or anywhere we've gone. Austin doesn't matter. It just
Mhm.
feels different. And when he does Jersey Girl and he has to stop and they come up on stage and then he did the fireworks at the end and I looked at
Mhm.
Chris and I went, I'm done. I feel I've gone to an all you can eat buffet. I've stuffed myself and I can't. And
Yeah.
I went home going, no, I'm glad he didn't know the song. Now the next day I wanted to go to another show, but it was the first time
Yeah.
ever I was like, that was perfect.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I definitely know what you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah.
And I agree. And we've we can feel that I haven't got I've only done 20. That's one of the things that you find Springsteen fans, they no matter what the number, they put only in front of it. Only
Yeah,
seven,
exactly. I've
only
always had it.
15,
Yep. Yep.
only 100. And but there is a difference. The show's always good, but that
Mhm.
audience, that energy really does matter, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's especially even comparing like seeing him in New York, like at the Garden
Yeah.
versus at Metal. I keep calling it Meadowlands. It's not Meadowlands.
That's
It's
okay, but I
Metal.
know.
It's a little bit different. It's still, don't get me wrong, that Bruce of the Garden, it's great. It's fun. It's still got that energy, but there's something about like Bruce and New Jersey and being in New
Yeah.
Jersey. See, just the whole temperature and everything changes and
Like
the
when he
yeah,
walked out, he said, "My people,"
exactly.
and it felt
Exactly.
really lovely.
I saw
So,
his Broadway show. That's why I was getting confused. I was
okay,
like, I
yeah,
loved him.
I was going to
Yeah,
ask, were you able
yeah.
to make the Broadway? Good.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
saw it. And I loved it. I cried like a baby. It was just like it was so beautiful. He's such a good to say that he's a good writer is silly. Obviously, he's a good songwriter. We all know that. But I've read his book. What I love
Yeah.
about his book is that it sounds like he wrote it. It's not that's I
Yeah.
don't think Ghost wrote that. That's
I don't
his
think
voice.
anywhere at all. No.
And then did you were you able to see the Broadway
I
show
was
too?
able to,
Yeah.
thank you, Linda. That's my wife. She let me go. Yes.
That's
Because it's
awesome.
expensive. When you
It
live
is
in
expensive. Yeah.
Dallas, ticket itself is
The
expensive, but
tickets,
then you got
yeah,
to fly and a hotel
exactly.
room.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was yeah, no, I just remember I cried so much, but not when it's sad, but he's just such a
Yeah.
beautiful storyteller, like the way he
Yeah.
tells the story of life and he's so funny too. I remember him like in the beginning he was talking about there's a few I still quote these to people like in the beginning where he's talking about yeah, I've written all these songs about people who work really hard and factory jobs. He's like, I've never set foot in a factory in my life. I've
Yeah.
never had a job where I had to show up 5 days a week until now, this show.
I don't
And
like it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he was like, also, he's like, hey, when I was, he was like, all that fist pumping Jersey, like Jersey Shore pride, whatever. He was like, that didn't exist when I was growing up. I invented that. You're welcome. And I
Yes.
was like, I love that. I love that. He's so funny.
He was so funny. And for Father's Day a couple of years ago, my wife and son pulled it up and we watched it, right? And they had not seen it. My wife had seen part of it and she said, I am so depressed. I have to go to bed. I can't take any more of this. And
Oh,
what's funny, I promise this is not an exaggeration. Like when she walked out and I pushed play again, like the next sentence was, okay, I'm going to get you off suicide watch. Let's talk about my mom. So I was like, Bruce, you know your audience.
Yep.
And Chris was like, how can he do that every night? He said,
No.
I've watched it and I'm emotionally wrecked. How
Yeah.
can he do that?
Oh, yeah. No, it's, I
So,
mean, like, there's I remember the moment where first started crying and then it felt like I was never going to stop crying was when he
yeah,
was talking about Clarence.
yeah,
And there's something when he goes and losing him, he's doing 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and then he kind
yeah,
of is talking to Clarence. And then he says, losing him was like losing the rain. And that was when I lost it. And that was like, I
yeah,
think I was just crying the rest of the show. I was
yeah.
laughing also, but I was like, but that line in particular, the way he put it, I was just like, oh, God.
I had known the set list beforehand. So I was like, I don't like the blues version of Born in USA. A little sad he's doing that. And I love Dancing in the Dark, but really, I don't know if that really works. Why's he got that in the show? So then,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course, he talks the story about going to the draft board and
Mm,
he says, I wonder who went in my place and goes
mm.
into the blues Born in the USA. And I go, okay, I need to shut the fuck up. And then when he talks about we have to do like my mom, put on our dancing shoes. And when he goes
Mhm.
from Dancing in the Dark to Land of Hope and Dreams, I
Mm,
went,
yeah,
oh, when I need a pick me up, when I'm feeling down, I love playing those two together and just it's a shot of joy.
yeah. Now that I think I'm gonna remember that because I've never thought to actually sit down and put those
Yeah.
two back to back myself, but
Yeah.
I'm when we're done, I'm gonna sit down and do that
Yeah.
and get that.
So as a bassist, you want to talk a little bit about Gary?
He's great. What I like about him is he's not flashy, which is and again I was talking about I wouldn't say Paul McCartney's a flashy bass player, but his bass
Yeah.
parts are complicated. I know how to play a number of them, and I also know how to play a bunch of Bruce Springsteen bass parts
Yeah.
or Gary Talent bass parts. He's a lot more. It's a lot simpler, but simpler doesn't mean unsophisticated or like unnecessary. It's very when I think of the role of the bass player in a band, it's very much okay. He and Max are the glue. And when you're looking at a band that's as big as the E Street Band,
Yeah.
that is so important. It's one thing I've mostly played. The most number of people I've played with people on stage has been like three others, maybe four others.
Okay.
How many people are in the E Street Band at this point? There's so many of them.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
there's 16 or 17 people on stage
Like,
every time I go see them.
and like when they did the scaled down version, when they didn't have the backup singers and the horn, it's still 7 or 8 people. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So you think about it as a group that large, and then you've got like the drums and bass are always going to be the glue of any rock band. And so it's like
Yeah.
he's doing exactly what needs to be done to keep all of those songs together. And it's a support for Bruce's singing,
Yeah.
but also just it allows for things like those beautiful saxophone parts that Clay. It's a foundation. He lays a bed, and then Clarence can do something really beautiful on top of it. Or I guess now
Yeah.
it's Jake, but and then or Roy doing some beautiful work on the keys. It's like but Gary is just holding it down. He's just keeping the song there, and it's just laying a really nice foundation. It's not flashy. It's just doing exactly what it needs to do. It's very tasteful. It's very in the flow, and then even it gives space for Max to do some. Max
Yeah.
has some famous drum fills and drum parts and stuff like that, and when I think of Gary Talent, I don't necessarily think of any there's no famous bass like Gary
Right.
Talent bass. There's no like my generation bass solo like Giant Whistle
Yeah.
or anything like that. There's nothing very noticeably. Yeah, that's a famous bass part. But that's not to say that he's not a good bass. In some ways, I feel like that's what makes him like the quintessential bass player is that he's not there to be the star of the show. He's there to be the bedrock upon which all of the other showy parts can have their moment, but those showy parts don't work if you don't have the foundation.
Oh, Reeya, you are not the first musician to join me to say that very thing. To
So yeah,
say that I don't think the casual fan will necessarily understand how much of the heavy lifting he's doing and doing it just seamlessly, not flashy, just there. And they, like I said, you almost have to be not that we don't appreciate him, but yeah, I forgot which someone we said, I don't think unless you're a musician, you can't understand the intricacies of what he's doing because you go, oh, it's just so simple, but it's brilliant in its simplicity.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I feel like that is something that unless you're a musician, you don't necessarily understand the like how important and how
yeah,
it's important but powerful. Like
yeah,
it's such a it's those songs don't work without
yeah,
him. You know, those it just it doesn't work. It like
yeah,
the things that people remember about the songs, like this famous saxophone solo at the end of Jungle Land or
yeah.
whatever, you can't do that without the foundation, and he's providing that foundation.
And I thought it was interesting too when Bruce was on Howard Stern again the second time when he had the band, he
Mhm.
mentioned that Gary is the longest serving member of the band now.
Oh, interesting. I did not
I did
realize.
not connect to, yeah, that. And yeah, I just think it's amazing. So I'm going to switch topics just for a minute.
Sure.
So you took piano lessons. You
Mhm.
finally said, I'm going to learn to play the bass. So
Mhm.
you go in there, you march that. How do you get from there to making music and recording, doing this not just for fun, but to
Yeah.
actually share? Tell me that journey.
So again, it started out just I wanted to learn how to play the bass because almost like it was like a bucket list thing.
Yeah,
And then I started playing with other people and playing in bands in these sort of cover band settings and made a lot of friends. Pretty much all of my close friends at this point are other
right.
musicians. And a lot of them were musicians who wrote original music. And I was always, I want to do that, but I don't know how to do that. And I would be quizzing them, like, how do you do it? How do you start? What do you even, how, I want to do it, but I don't know how. And a lot of imposter syndrome, I would say, in there too. It's just, am I
Right.
allowed to do this? Am I, what if like, and
Oh, what do I have to say?
exactly, exactly. And then a friend of mine, Jonathan Frith, he's a singer-songwriter. He's very he's very much from the Bob Dylan tradition, but he's if you talk to him and you say, "What's your favorite Springsteen album?" He's going to say Nebraska,
Okay.
obviously. But I remember talking with him. I talk about this a lot because anytime I go anywhere and talk about my music, I shout him out because he was the one who made me understand this because I was like, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do this. And I feel like I'm going to be bad at it. And he was like, here's the thing. If you want to write music, if you want to do this, you have to just do it. You can't, nobody out here is going to say, now you're allowed to. Nobody, it's not about asking for permission. There are no rules. Nobody's going to come and put a crown on your head and say, now it's your job to write your music. He's, if you want to do it, you have to just do it. And I said, okay, I hear you, but what if I don't know what I would like? What if I write something really dumb and it's bad and people don't like it and it's stupid? And he was like, it's going to be dumb in the beginning. He's the first things you write, they're going to be dumb. Just accept it. They're going to be bad. They're going to be dumb. You might end up rewriting a song that you know that you didn't realize you were rewriting it. And you're like, oh, whoops, when you hear it back. These the first songs I wrote were awful. But that's part of it is you have to start doing it and keep doing it and then eventually you'll find your voice. But he's like, the bad stuff, the shitty stuff that you don't want anybody to ever listen to because you're like, you have to push through that part in order to actually get to a place where, you can actually write something that you think is good. And that was a big moment for me too. It's just like, okay, fine. Suck it up, deal with it, just do it. Even still, I came to original songwriting fairly late. I was 36, 37 when my first album came out. And I worked with, and he's been my songwriting partner now for both my first record and now this one that's coming out this week. Luke Folger, and he's just somebody I met through friends, and he's a drummer primarily, but he's multi instrumentalist and he's a composer. And he and I got together, and because he'd written songs but never full songs for anybody else, and I was like, I have ideas, but I don't. I'm a writer as well, not like a songwriter. I was a creative writer before I was ever a songwriter, so I was like, I know how to structure things and write well, but I don't know how to make lyrics out of them. but I have ideas for what I want songs to be about, and I have an idea of what I want them to sound like. And so he was like, okay, how about we collaborate and I help you work through all that. And he and I are the same age, so we had a lot of the same, not necessarily classic rock touchstones, but a lot of the same music that we grew up listening to that was on top 40 radio when we were kids that we
Sure.
had in common. So it was like a lot of Foo Fighters, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Matchbox 20, stuff like that was very big when 90s kids, but like the post Nirvana 90s
Right.
kids were a little bit too young to have been fully in the Nirvana mode. Not that I would never bash Nirvana. They're amazing, but I was
Yeah.
just a little bit too young to experience them when they were
Sure.
doing the thing. And what ended up happening was I would write a bunch of free verse at him. I would almost spitball free verse, almost like word vomit, and be like, I want this song to be about like this experience or this. I want to write a song about coming out of a bad relationship, or whatever it was, or recovering from depression. That was the first out record I wrote was after I had come out of a fairly severe mental health crisis. So a lot of the songs on that record are about that. And I'd be like, okay, here's just what I want to say. And I'd sort of spitball, and he would look at it and then talk to me about, okay, what are you thinking of when you're thinking of what you want the song to be about? And then he would try to translate what I'd written into lyrics that worked and sounded like they came from me. So that was my very first record. It was a lot of, I'll be blunt, I'll say he handheld me through that one
Yeah.
because I still very much, I don't know if I should be doing this.
Yeah.
Is it really, am I doing this right or what? And he was like, it's not about, I was trying to do the, okay, just start. And I had somebody who was willing to help me
What
get
was
over that hump.
what's the name of the album?
It's called The Way Up, and it is available everywhere. You could stream Spotify, Pandora, etc., Apple Music,
Okay.
Amazon. It's on. I have a Bandcamp page, and
Okay.
so yeah. So we did that, and we released it in. We didn't know what we were doing. It was January of 2022 when we released it, which is like it, when I think about it now, is we released it in the dead of winter, in the middle of the Omicron COVID surge.
Yeah.
Is like, is anyone going to be paying attention to this? But we also didn't want to sit on it because we were like, it was
Yeah.
done by that point. And it was mastered, it was ready to go. And we were like, we're not going to learn anything if we just sit on it and wait for the snow to melt. So let's
Yeah.
just put it out there and see what happens. And it got more attention than we were expecting it to. It didn't become super famous, but
Yeah.
we were expecting it to just be, nobody would listen to it at all. And
Yeah.
it got some attention. I got some good reviews, and I played a bunch of shows locally, like in the Hudson Valley where I was living. And we moved upstate up near Albany for a while, played some shows up there. And that was a really great experience. And it was almost like, having done that, I was like, okay, now I know what it's like to create original music. And then coming out of that, almost immediately coming out of that, my best friend, James Rubino, who's a really talented guitar player, and he now owns a recording studio. At that time, he used to record stuff out of his apartment. And we recorded a bunch of cover songs. He and I actually did a cover of Thunder Road together during COVID lockdown because we were bored and we were like, we got to do something to keep busy.
Yeah.
So he was like, you have a lot of creative momentum coming out of this album right now. And Luke and I wanted to work on another album, but I wanted to figure out what I wanted it to be about, and I hadn't quite figured that out yet. And then Luke's wife had also just had a baby, so he was on paternity leave, so to speak. So I was
Yeah.
like, he was like, while they deal with the immediate, we just had a baby. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's like, how about you and I write something just to keep this creative momentum going? So we wrote two singles that are also available on Spotify and everywhere else, Mechanic of the Hudson and Shadows. And those are two songs that I very aggressively took the lead on writing the lyrics to, because I finally was like, okay, I think I feel safe now saying, okay, I can write lyrics. I feel like I learned how to write lyrics by going through the exercise with Luke. And those two songs they're a little bit more, they're not in that kind of 90s post grunge power pop zone. They're a little bit more, James and I are very classic rock. That's what bonded us. So
Yeah.
Mechanic of the Hudson is Pink Floydy, and Shadows is like early U2.
Okay.
All of which are under the category of music I like, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like a little bit of a departure. And so we wrote those two songs, and then Luke and I started talking about the record that is about to come out this Friday. And
Hmm.
it's one of the reasons why it's funny that we're talking about Bruce and we're talking about the Broadway show in particular, because I realized very late in the game, like late as in like maybe a month ago when I was writing the liner notes as I was getting
Mhm.
ready to send. I'm going to do a vinyl. I didn't do vinyl for the first record. I was broke. I saved up money for this one because I wanted to do it
Okay.
right. I'm really proud of this new material. Which isn't to say that I'm not proud of the first one, but this one
Sure.
is just, this is the best work I've ever done. And I realized as I was writing the liner notes, I was like, I think I accidentally, or maybe not accidentally, maybe subliminally, I was trying to do with this record what Bruce did with the Broadway show, because the record, it's called This Place. It's 9 songs, and it's about, we talked about me moving around a lot as a kid. It's about it's 9 songs, 9 places I've lived in my life, either in childhood or in adulthood. And not like it's not, oh, I was born in Washington, D.C. Here's a song about Washington, D.C., and there's the White House. Or
Yeah.
I grew up in San Francisco. Here's a song about the Golden Gate Bridge. It's more about, I think of a, I would take a core memory or feeling or emotion or story from that time period when I lived in that location. That's what the song would be about. And so 9 songs, the first 3 are about my childhood, DC, Chicago, San Francisco. And then I moved to New York for college and then I stayed and I lived all over New York. I've lived mostly in the Hudson Valley. I worked in Manhattan for a very long time. I lived upstate for a while, further upstate. Now I'm in Jersey. We finished the album before I moved to Jersey, so I did not get to write a New Jersey song. But
The next one.
that's the next one. Yep,
Yeah.
that'll be the next one.
So,
And so it ended up being like a life story, like that's like a geography of identity in 9 songs. And I was like, I didn't realize it until I was thinking about it to write liner notes. I was like, this is my version of what Bruce was doing on the stage with the Broadway show. And once I had that light bulb moment, I was like, whoa, okay. And because I remember also when I was first talking with Luke about what I wanted the album to be about, I was like, I was listening to Land of Hope and Dreams, I think, when I was emailing
yeah.
him, and I was like, I'm listening to this Bruce Springsteen song right now. And Luke isn't
Yeah.
in the Bruce fan club. So I was like, I'm gonna have to give you some assignments. I'm gonna have to give you some
Yeah.
albums to listen
Sure.
to, some homework. I gave him that, and I was like, and then also listen to Boy by U2. I was like, I know that's gonna sound random, but
Yeah.
go with me. And so I was like, I'm thinking about just that song in particular, just like this sort of like expansiveness, like how Bruce writes about America and his experience of America. And it's not like jingoistic, super patriotic, like America, fuck yeah. It's like it's very specific,
Yeah.
intimate experiences of America. And I was like, I want to do something like that from my point of view as somebody who moved around a lot as a kid, as somebody who's the child of immigrants. It's a different type of experience of growing up in America, but that's what I'm thinking about. I was like, I told Luke, I was like, this is going to sound very big and expansive, but I was like coming at it top down. I want it to be about geography and places.
Yeah.
And specifically, I want it to feel expansive the way I feel when I listen to Bruce sing a song like Land of Hope and Dreams. And he's singing about America and he's also singing about himself and family and love. And I was like, I told Luke, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm being very ambitious right now, but
No, that's good.
yeah.
So, a couple of things. One, one of my best friends and I say that American Land and Land of Hope and Dreams are what other people think Born in the USA is about.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Right? What's interesting to me, Reeya, and I don't know if it will be anyone else. This month is the 10th anniversary of doing this podcast, and I get people going, "Wow, I've always thought about doing a podcast. Do you have any advice?" And I go,
Mm.
"Okay, first off, make sure your topic is broad enough that you won't run out of subjects, right? Most podcasts don't go past 7 episodes. Second, make sure it's a topic you will love talking about, even if no one listens.
Yep.
And three, just do it. Because you know what? Your first episodes are going to suck,
Yep.
right?
This
That's
sounds
just
good.
it. And
Yeah.
then you'll get better as you do it.
Yeah. And you
But the
find your voice.
only way to get it is by doing it,
Exactly.
you know?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you're listening to that, I was going, that's exactly right. And a few years ago, probably longer than that now, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I was, I had a mentor in my business life, a guy named Vic Avarella, and I was debating on what to do about a job offer. He said, Jesse, there is no right answer.
Mm.
You keep thinking that there's going to be a right answer. there's just an answer. You either take the new job
Hmm.
and you'll have new experiences and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. You stay with the old job. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But there isn't a magic lane that's going to do. You just make your choices and do the best you can. And that really meant a lot to me. And I think the same thing that you go, I'm not a writer. If you write, you're a writer.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if anyone else likes it or not. And if you like what you're doing and you're proud of what you're doing, then good for you. And I read a biography of the Mamas and the Papas, and John Phillips always was about he wanted to be successful. He
Mm.
wanted to make money. And I'm sugarcoating it, but I get the feeling Bruce just wanted to make music.
I think that you're absolutely right.
I think the
Yeah.
Beatles liked making music. Did they want to make money? Sure.
Yeah.
But the reason they did it is they wanted to make the music. And
Yep.
I think that's that's the key, right? Is
Huh.
I want to, and I don't know if you watched the movie Blinded by the Light, about
I
the
have.
kid and he's Pakistani and he's in
Oh yes, yeah, I did see. I forgot that it was called that, but yeah, I
and
have
when he
seen that. Yeah,
tells the
yeah,
teacher, I don't know if they're good, these points, but they're mine.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that's good for you that you're sharing your voice.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is you're no, you're exactly right. And I think you're right about y- anybody who, and I say this knowing a lot of musicians who like are like me, we're independent, we don't have
yeah,
I don't have a big PR machine behind me. I'm
yeah,
just doing it myself. I've got friends who are musicians. My best friend owns a recording studio. We
yeah,
recorded much of the second album at his recording studio at a deep discount because he's my best friend.
yeah,
Like you call in favors, you say, hey, can you do this? And you figure out how to put it all together and market it and get on social media. And when you're on labeled, that's just, you just have to constantly be putting your stuff out there.
yeah,
And yes, I want people to listen to it. Yes, I want people to buy a vinyl copy of it when that's available to them. I would love if people would stream enough on Spotify that I actually make more than 18 cents a year.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, for me, I like doing it. And if there is one person out there who listens to my album or even one song and is I like it, I'm like, that's great. If I can move somebody, just even one person, I'm like, okay, then that's for me, that's success. That means that I've succeeded. The rest is all gravy after that. I certainly would. If somebody wants to hand me a record deal and hold me, and then I can quit my job being an accountant, I can do this full
sure,
time. I won't turn it down. But
yeah,
until I get to that point, I'll keep plugging away at my day job, but I will always make time to make music and put my
yeah.
stuff out. It took us 3 years between the first record and this one because
But it doesn't
like day
matter.
job.
There's,
I know,
yeah,
and the thing too, it doesn't. I know, like I wanted to do it. That was the thing is like I
yeah,
was talking with Luke because we were working on it, and then he was mixing it once we were done recording it, and he was like, "I'm sorry, this is taking so long," and I was like, "Don't apologize. I want you to mix it well. I want it to
yeah,
sound good." We
yeah,
don't have that's the joy of not having a label. Nobody's breathing down our necks saying you got to get it out by this time. If we're going to put our names on it and put it out in the world, we want it done. I want to just put out music for the sake of having music with my
sure.
name on it. It's bad for the
S-
fun.
So a writer I really like named Mark Evanier does a really good blog. He's written a lot of comic books. He was the executive producer of Garfield and Friends. He wrote tons of those comics and
Yeah.
the cartoons. And he was telling the story he was in Vegas and a friend of his said, "What are you doing tonight?" And he says, "I don't have any plans." He goes, and she says, "Okay, I have a ticket for you, but you have to say yes before I tell you who it is." And he goes, "Okay." And she says, "It's Barry Manilow." And he
Mm,
says, "I would have said yes anyway. Okay, sure." So he
yeah.
goes to the Barry Manilow show. He's sitting next to a couple, and they were talking about they fell in love to Barry's music. They played it at their wedding. They are just so excited to see him. And Mark said, "I've won awards, but I would think hearing someone say they fell in love to my music Better
Yeah.
than any Grammys, gold records,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
The other story he told is, and this I thought was funny. He said he had musician friends that go, Barry Manilow, what he does is easy. He doesn't try to do anything. And Mark
Oh.
said he wanted to go, I really respect you that you so don't want to take the easy pass that you give up having millions of dollars and success because you don't want to do the easy stuff. So I am excited. Tell us the name of the album again.
It's called This Place, and
Okay.
it's coming out Friday, August 22nd. So in
Okay.
2 days as of us recording this right
Yeah.
now. So and I'm running on fumes. It's like the last few days of just trying to get the word out. And yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very proud of it.
I will include a link to where you can get it and where to find more information. But I do want to go back to Bruce. Are there favorite songs or albums that mean a lot to you?
Yes, I will say that the entirety of Born in the USA, which is probably not what people would necessarily think of as like a very meaningful one, that one's meaningful to me because it was the first time I was in a band where I was like, the assignment was, we're going to learn this album front to back and play
Hmm.
it. And there's something about, it was a very specific assignment almost that we
Yeah.
gave ourselves. But then just diving into it and learning it that way, which also just meant actually really digging into the songs in a more substantial way than I ever did like on a casual listen. And there's a lot of cool stuff in that album. Cover Me is one of my favorite Bruce songs of all time. I don't think it's necessarily one that, like,
Yeah.
if you're thinking of classic Bruce songs, people aren't necessarily going to be like, oh yeah, Cover Me. Fantastic song, very cool bass line. That's some really cool stuff that Gary Talent is doing there. And just a really great, almost like a dance song that's not a dance song. I think a Downbound Train, bleak as hell, but really like powerful. I'm on Fire. There's just some really
Yeah.
great. Bobby Jean is one of my favorite
Yeah.
Bruce songs. Bobby Jean is, everyone says it's about him and Little Stevie, and I'm just like, it's the most romantic song about a platonic friendship
Yeah.
ever written. It's something that only Bruce could pull off and have everybody singing along to. And then so
I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and at the show, and he had done Thunder Road acoustic, ended the show. The band had walked off. I saw Max give his drumsticks to someone, and Bruce was still on stage, and he picked up his guitar and started strumming. And this in my mind, they were done,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
did Bobby Jean, and it felt like 4 o'clock Christmas Day, and all of a
yeah,
sudden, oh look, here's a present we missed.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and they just did Bobby Jean, and it was just like,
That's
oh my
amazing.
God. It was like, oh no. Are there songs you're chasing that next time you get to see him live, is there songs you want to hear him do?
That's a great question too. I would love to hear him play. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't even remember what. Oh my God, I'm having like a brain fart here. I
That's
was
okay.
talking about this with somebody the other day. Oh my God, I can't believe it. To the Promised Land. I can't believe I
Okay.
could. I'm sitting
That's
here
okay.
thinking like, duh. I knew it was like a duh
Yeah,
answer.
that's okay.
I've never heard him play that live.
Okay.
And I think that is again one of his most, it's certainly one of his most famous, but it's also
Yeah.
just a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Love to hear him play that. I'll say I've seen him play Rosalita once, but only
Hmm.
once. I would love to see him play it again.
Yeah. Mary's Place I've only seen him do it once, and I
Yeah,
want it so much again.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is amazing. That was a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that was at that first show, the one I saw in Hershey, the
Yeah.
very first show. And I've never seen him do it since. I I'm sure I've seen him do Hungry Heart, but I will always be happy to hear Hungry Heart again. I love the backstory that he wrote that song for the Ramones, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Mm." And he was like, all right, I'll do it. And
Yeah.
it's funny to think of it. What would the Ramones have done with that? And it would
Yeah.
definitely would not have been what it is, but what
Yeah.
it is, like charming and
Yeah.
awesome, and you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, is there something I should have asked you that I haven't?
Oh man. I don't know. We've talked about so much. Oh, I don't know if this isn't necessarily something you should have asked me, but this is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite Bruce memories, and I wasn't
Okay.
even there when it happened, but
Okay.
I've heard the recording and I've seen it on, and it was when they did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame like
Yeah.
the anniversary thing at the Garden, which I was desperate to get tickets to, and it was like there's impossible. And then I looked on StubHub. I was like, maybe we can
Yeah.
try. Tickets in the nosebleed section were going for $5,000. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's not happening. But Bruce and the East Street Band ended up being the house band,
Yeah.
defensive house band for that show. And then Bono comes out. I love you too.
Sure.
I know that can be a polarizing opinion to have
No,
of
I
the
love them too.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Some people are like, everyone got so mad at them when they put their album on everyone's iPhone without asking, and everyone, I feel like everyone got mad at them and hasn't stopped
yeah,
being mad at them. I'm like, delete it off your phone. It's not that big of a deal.
yeah,
I got it. I was like, hey, cool. I get a free U2 album. That's awesome.
yeah. Like, yeah,
Bono came out and sang, I still haven't found what I'm looking for with Bruce. But before he did so, he gave like a classic Bono speech, which I
mm,
know is also another thing that people get annoyed with him for. I find it charming. But it's just
yeah.
Bono being Bono. You gotta love him, you
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
His heart's in the right place. His politics are good. You can't get mad at him. He's not out
No.
there spreading hate. His
Yeah.
whole thing, love and justice and stuff like that. But so he gives these long preamble while like the band is vamping on Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. And I'm here at Madison Square Garden, this great cathedral to rock and roll. And what is rock and roll really? And it's about liberation, like a creative and sexual and romantic and whatever, spiritual liberation. That's what we're all here about here at this cathedral of rock and roll. And everyone's yay, but also just like a little, whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's a long, awkward silence. And then Bruce is, yeah, let's have some fun with that. And then they launch into the song. It's like Bruce being like, okay, we got to pivot into the song
We
somehow.
got to do somehow. That's
Exactly. And
awesome.
Bono's left this very heavy, like heavy emotion out
Yeah.
on the audience. But let's have some fun with that. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's just class. And I know he and Bono are really good friends in
Yeah,
real.
they
And
are. Yeah.
so, I
Yeah.
think that was just a classic moment of just him being like, all right,
Yeah.
Bono's putting this out there and I got to bring us back to reality right now.
Speaking
And
of,
then, yeah.
any thoughts on Bruce's latest political talk?
Yeah, I'm with him. I get right now I'll say that I get so nervous when I see anybody being, and this is such a horrible thing to say because we live in a country where you should not be afraid to say things. But it's just so scary out there right now.
Yes.
And I see him saying that and I'm just like, I love him for it and God bless him for doing it and that's amazing. And I'm worried that there's some lunatic out there who's going to try to kill him.
I tend to speak up on my Facebook page,
Mhm.
and my wife says, I'm proud of you doing it, but I'm afraid for you. I'm
Yeah,
afraid that this administration's goons are going to come and
absolutely, absolutely. That's how I feel. It's like every time I talk to my dad, he's like, I know you're promoting your album right now, but be careful what you post online. And I was like, I'm mostly posting, hey, my
yeah,
album's
music. Yeah.
I
Uh,
was like, I'm not really doing
yeah.
anything terribly political. And he's like, just be careful. And he's my dad, he worries.
Of course,
But
that's
like,
our
but I
job.
exactly, yeah. But I get it though, because I feel that way. Like when I see like Bruce saying stuff like that, and I'm just like, I agree with him, and I'm scared because he's a public figure, and all it would take
Yeah.
is for one psycho to get a ticket to one of his shows and be like, I'm gonna show him, and then that's a whole it's just so sad that's where we are right now, where we have to even where that thought would even cross my mind that, oh, what if a
Yeah.
lunatic gets a ticket to his show
Yeah.
just to take a pop at him because they don't like what he's saying about Trump. And it just makes me so sad that I even have to feel that way. But I am legitimately like, that is a fear that I have.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I had Shun Lee on my podcast 3 or 4 years ago, and she is Taiwanese
Mhm.
and wonderful writer. And she had written an article about her complicated relationship with Born in the USA
Interesting.
because she's a first generation. And she told the story that they went to like Indian guides or Boy Scout camps or something, and some kids were taunting them singing Born in the USA because they were,
Yeah.
and she loves Bruce. But she
Mhm.
goes, it's this complicated because that song brings back those memories for her.
Yeah.
And I love American Land and the sentiment of the song, that in someone like yourself, that first generation, and this is, oh, stop. I get angry that people, no, we don't want to let people in. Why? That's what we
Hey,
were built on.
that was exactly what this was for. That's why they
Yeah.
came here.
Yeah, just anyway, it's crazy. All right, I have had so much fun. I'm sorry I've kept you so long. This has been a
I'm having fun
blast.
too. I'm happy to keep going, but
Good. Yeah.
everyone's got to go to bed at some point. But
Yeah, I'm going to give you in a minute to tell people how to find you, how to find the album, and any final thoughts. But before you do that, I end every podcast with the Mary question. And what that was, or is Jay Armstrong, who was an honors English teacher back in the day, he's now retired. But when he was teaching, he would give the lyrics to Thunder Road to his students, and they would read it as if it was a poem. And they would discuss the imagery Bruce explores, the themes he explores. They compare it to like Robert Frost and The Road Not Taken. And then he would ask his class, does Mary get in the car? So, Reeya, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I think I'm going to put it out there too. Nobody's going to see this. I have the last line of Thunder Road tattooed on my forearm. So that's how much I love that song.
Yeah,
I think she does. I think she does because not necessarily because she has fallen in love with him with all he's saying to her in that song, but I think she does because he's offering her a way out and she wants a way out too. And I think that it's not even necessarily about romance, although maybe it could be
yeah.
for whoever Bruce is in that song and Mary, but it's more about let's be a team and get ourselves to a better place. So I think that's why she gets in the car. I think she gets in the car, and I think that's why. It's not necessarily romantic yet, but maybe it could be. But
I love
it's more about let's be partners and get out of here.
I love that answer. All right. Tell us how we can find you, how to find the album, and if you got any final thoughts.
Sure. So the I'm available on any of your streaming choice platforms of choice: Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, it's not iTunes anymore, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer. I'm told that these are platforms. I don't know if anybody actually listens to them,
Yeah.
uses them. And I am, if anyone wants a CD, I will be selling those on my website. That's reeyabanerjee.com. I'm also, if you want to go to my Bandcamp page, that's reeyabanerjee.bandcamp.com. You can buy the music there directly, and all of that money actually does come into my pocket directly.
I was going to ask you, I always like to ask that, and I get it. It's very convenient to go to Spotify, you play the songs, and you just joked, you get 18 cents a year. So, yeah, I always like to ask the artist, what's the best way for them to support you?
To support me directly would be to go to my Bandcamp page, reeyabanerjee.bandcamp.com, and you can buy all of my music there, and that comes straight to me. Also, Bandcamp started doing this during the pandemic, and I think they still do it. The first Friday of every month is Bandcamp Friday. They waive their revenue share. So if you buy my music or anyone's music on Bandcamp on the first Friday of the month, 100% of the money that you pay comes to the artist.
Oh, how
And that's something
nice.
they started doing that during the pandemic because musicians were very
Yes.
significantly impacted by venues closing and stuff like that. So they were like, it
Yeah.
was a small thing that they could offer, and then they kept it going even as things have opened up. So to keep in mind as well.
Okay.
So that's that. And then also, if you just want to see some behind the scenes of me and my band, I'm on Instagram at B Music. It's a lot of album promo there lately, but I post clips of me and my band working through songs and stuff like that, and also goofy stuff and my favorite music. And here's a photo of me when I went to Bruce Springsteen's book signing, and oh my god, I got to shake his hand. So you and pictures of my cat. You'll get a little bit of everything. So you'll kind of
What did you say to him at the signing?
Oh my God. I Here's what I remember. I thought that I was gonna tell him a very eloquent story about like when I about seeing him at Hershey Park with the man that I is I'm am we're partnered with. Yeah, we're not married, but we've been together almost 17 years at this point.
Yeah.
I was going to tell him, like, I fell in love with my guy at your show. And then I also wanted to be like, and I've played Born in the US. I had so many things I want to say. I've played Born in the USA, back to front, and you're amazing, whatever. And what happened was, it was like they had a very organized system at the Barnes and
Yes.
Noble. So they were like, you go shake his hand, look, they'll take a picture, and then we can have a little conversation with him. And I thought it was very sweet that he wanted to have a little
I did too.
conversation.
I agree. Yes.
But I literally got there and I walked up to him. He shook my hand and he goes, "Hi, darling." And my brain short circuited. And
Bruce
I was
Springsteen
like,
just
"Bruce,
called me
hi,
darling.
darling." Yeah. And then I was like, I don't know if anything, I don't know what I actually said, but I think I did say I fell in love with Tim at a concert of yours. And then all of a sudden, randomly, I was like, and I know how to play some of your songs because I did this thing once at a bar. I don't know. Ah, and then it was like time to leave. And I was like, I just made a terrible impression on him. But
I won't tell the long story, but basically I'm driving down to Austin because I had bought a ticket and the whole trip I was like the guy in The Godfather, Luca Brasi at the very beginning where he keeps practicing what he's going to tell the Godfather. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, may your first grandchild be a masculine child and everything. So Bruce, I was unemployed last year for 9 months. I listened to Better Days and Land of Hope and Dreams every day to keep my spirits up. Last
Yeah.
year, I was unemployed for 9 months, just over and over again. So when he got there, we got our picture, shook his hand, and I told him that. And then you're gone. You know it's next.
Yeah.
And what I always say is I don't know if he heard me, but I needed to say it more than I needed him to hear it.
Yeah.
That's
Very
great.
true.
Yeah.
True.
All right. Keep me posted. Let's do
Absolutely.
this again. I would
Yes,
love to
absolutely.
have you on again. That's good.
Absolutely.
If you and
Yeah.
Tim want to join me together and we can talk about how Springsteen
He's
was your love.
he has seen Bruce before he and I were together. He's seen Bruce by
Okay.
himself a bunch of times. So he's got, I'll ask him.
Yeah.
He's probably seen him close to 20, 25 at this point too.
Okay.
I go downstairs and ask him to do
I
his
think that'd
count.
be fun though. I think that'd be fun
Yeah,
to
to do
tell
it.
you
Yeah.
guys. That'd be great. All right,
Yeah.
guys, go to the website. I'll include the link in the show. Check out the music. Check out on Bandcamp. If you want to, I assume it's a signed CD.
Yes, it will be a
Okay.
signed CD.
All right. So go to the website, check it out. Support music. I just had a guy on that's a sports host here in Dallas. And he said, look, no matter who your team, they're going to let you down. Only
Mhm.
one team every year wins the championship. I
Yep.
will promise you a live concert will never let you down.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes.
So I'm like, so support live music, support independent artists, and Reeya, just you were a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you
So
for having me. This was so much fun. I love this. This is so much fun. And I love that you asked the Mary question too. That's fantastic.
yeah, I end every podcast with it. It's just a fun way to button up. I had a friend who said the old actor studio where he would have the
Oh,
same questions
yeah,
he'd ask
yeah,
every end.
yeah,
He says,
yeah,
that's your version. I said, I guess I'll take it.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Listeners, be safe, be kind, check out our music, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.